Hi children, how are you all? Are you fine? Hope you all are fine and well. Okay, let's see subject SS and chapter measure landforms. Okay, then in our earlier that period, we have seen that these landforms created by the rivers, and we have already seen that course of the river, that upper course, middle course, and lower course. We have already seen that V-shaped valley, gorge, canyon, waterfalls, and the U-shaped valley, meanders and oxbow lakes, floodplains, natural levees, and lowercase delta and that estuary. So now landforms created by the sea waves. Some landforms created by the sea waves are there. That coastal landforms are there that shaped by the erosion and by the deposition work done by the sea waves. Like that river, some sea waves deposited materials. It formed that some that landforms. So this also known as marine and erosion and marine deposition was that marine erosion and marine deposition. These things forms that by the sea waves, it formed by the marine depositions and marine that erosion. Let's see. Sea cliffs are there. First of all, we'll see the sea cliffs. When the sea waves crash against the high rock, it crash dash with the high rocks, coastal rocks, and near the base it that erodes with the passage of time, and the rocks above the hollow mark formed by the sea waves. The part of this collapse, leaving and the steep walls of a rock that facing the sea. So this is called the sea cliffs. The sea waves directly beat by the rocks and pass by the mean of time, and the rocks hollow out part and the base collapse, leaving that steep wall is formed. So this is called that sea cliffs. Next is that sea caves are there. The sea waves continuously that strike and dissolves or breaks down the sea cliffs. It breaks down the sea cliffs. Continuously that waves of the sea is come to the seashores, and then it dissolves or breaks down the sea cliffs and into the smaller pieces. The rocky surface develops and enters through that, and many small and that large that cracks happening in that rocks, and it becomes wider by the form of that waves and cavities. It's the whole shape like form. It is called that sea that caves. Sea earth is there. When a narrow piece of land, when a narrow piece of land projects into that sea, attacked by the sea waves from both the sides. A narrow piece is attacked by the sea from both the sides. Then a passage is created. It is called that sea earth. That. Then next is that lagoons is there. Sometimes that sandman rocks are there in the sea. That water can deposit as a long and narrow burst, and on the sea bed near the sea coast area they are called sand dunes, and that these bursts becoming big and cut off by the force of that sea waves, and the sea parts mainly water body that is there. The enclosed part of the sea, that water from the salt, the water lake is there, that called lagoons. So that enclosed part by the sea waves, and that present water that gets deposited as long as narrow bars of area of the sea near the coast area, it's coastal area. And the sand that birds are there. This coming of cut off by the sea waves and this form that lagoons. Sea beaches is there. Next thing is that sea beaches. So sediments like sand, gravel, pebbles, then some shells, and present in the sea water get deposited at one place at some places and along the coast. This deposit of collection of from the sea beaches. So that deposit of that gravels, pebbles, and sand forms at one place and it collects to the form of sea beaches. Headlands and that bay. Sometimes the coast, is made up of that alternate banks and hard rocks, and that sometimes it's made up with the alternate and hard rocks. The softer rocks are there sometimes. It erodes faster and forming a bay and a harder rock stand out and that lands. Sometimes that rocks are there, the smaller rocks, they faster forming and harder rocks stands out that and lands and bay. Landforms. Some landforms are there. They are that created by that moving ice also. Some landforms are created by moving ice. So as a result of that snowfall, that the lot of ice flooding and the high altitudes, the large amount of ice may that accumulate in a place, or this accumulation of that ice is called snowfield. Know that hilly area, large amount of ice falls happening. So large amount of ice falls that accumulate, that is on the sea, is called that snowfall. The large mass of that ice, may start moving like a river from a higher mountain to slope of a lower mountain. It flows in the river from higher mountain to the slopes of a lower mountain. So this moving that ice, mass of ice, is called that glaciers, and that is created by the moving ice. So snow is called that glacier, and let's know more about that landforms formed by the sea, that glacier. So moving ice is there. Lot of amount of like a river, it flows in that river of ice. It forms that formation of that land, that is called the glacier. So different that form made by glacier that we see. First of all, we see like U-shaped valleys. When a glacier, that ice moves to breaks and it carries away fragments, rocks, mountains, valleys, and for this creates a valley shape with a flat bottom and the steep vertical sides. It's moves, and such a valley is called that U-shaped valley. The formation of U-shaped valley happen. The glacier moves, it breaks and carries away that fragments and rock materials with them, and valley form. This creation of that valley is called that U-shaped valley. Next thing is that moraines. A large, as the glacier moves down a valley, the glacier moves down in a valley, it melts due to that warmer climate. A glacier of ice that it moves and if climate is hot, then it melts, then they unable to carry that boulder, that loads, and it deposits them a huge amount of that reds and sands, gravels, and clay, and flounder then deposits them bricks and at this age. So these deposited materials that are called the moraines. Okay. Then that circuit, turn, and icebergs. While glaciers were moves and it carries out that deep hollow on a mountain side. It carries out a deep hollow on mountain side and they depressions are there to call that circuits. These depressions of this there are called that circuits. Sometimes very thick that block iceberg are there that walk and glaciers from ice shelter. They are called that icebergs. And the landforms that created by the wind also. Some landforms are there. They are created by wind also. So wind is another that agent which that slopes and shapes that landform. Wind is another that agent that shapes like different that landforms. By eroding, transporting, and by depositing. So that rocky that materials are there which flows in the wind by the speed of wind and it creates deposit, erosions, transport, and it also shapes at different landforms. So mushroom rock is there. A wind, it blows with its great speed and deserts and on land, and because of that lack of that vegetation, there is no vegetation. So since there is no moisture is not there. So in desert rock, that fragments like loose and the wind able to carry them easily. The base of that rocks are very loose, so that wind was able to carry that base materials very easily. So since the wind is that unable to carry that rocky materials, but in the air, but it carries that towards lower base of the rocks. It can't carry that upper base of the rock because of that hard materials. But in lower base, that low materials are there. The wind is able to carry them with them. So after a long process, that materials of that base, was that blown by the wind and rocks, and the upper part is there safe only. In the base, that all materials that taken by the wind. So after a long process, more amount of that dust and the base is washed by the wind, and a narrow basement. It's like that mushroom shape, and it's called that mushroom that rocks. Sand dunes are there. Next is that is sand dunes. A dune is formed by the sand deposited by the wind, and it is usually founded along the branches or the deserts. The dunes is formed by the winds. Usually the materials deposited at one place by the wind. So it usually along the that beaches and or in the deserts, dunes, and form. The wind slows down and blows. So sand into the shelters area like this area. It moves, and behind the tree or rocks, it's formed that shape. So the collection of these dunes. No, the collection of these dunes are there. Let's call that dune belt or that dune that field. The collection of dune, it is called that dune belt or dune that field. A large that dune field is called earth, or we can say the stony desert. A lot of stones and amounts of collected in one place by the winds. It is called that stony deserts, and with stones, gravels and pebbles are called that rag or kiver that plains. Next thing is that less. Wind deposits, a wind deposits a lot of amount of material with them, like sleets and other that materials like blanket or the land. From the blanket from the land, it forms the blanket of the land by depositing the various materials like that dust, sleets and other materials, and it's formed like a blanket on the land. This layer of fine that minerals in the rich materials is called that Lewis, and this can be found at the edges of the deserts and can develop into the fertile land. So these all materials are being depositing at one place. It's like a blanket of lands, and this called that Lewis. Oasis. When a lot of that sand and soil, when a lot of sand and soil is deposited at one place and blown by the wind in the desert, lot of materials like sand and soil is blown away by the wind, and it often creates that depressions, such as the depressions become deep. Whenever the wind from the desert side, it carries away a lot of materials, and it's like whole shaped. It's that depositing amount was more than its depression was there. So its depression becomes deep and deep. It's flowing that all materials deep and deep, and a hole is formed. Then in the deep underground water, we can get that seep out of the field, that depression forming an oasis. So that with the great speed of that wave, with the great speed of wind, it is that flows away lot of materials from one place and often creates that depressions. Such as depressions become deep and deep whenever it becomes that materials flown away, and same amount of materials taking at one place, and it's happening deep and deep, and sometimes that's deep underground water steps out and fill the depressions, forming an oasis. So lot of amount of that depressions happen and deep, so that underground water will come out and it takes the place of that depressions, and forming that called that oasis. It takes the place of depressions, the amount of water that will come because of that deposition. It was that depressions was there and deep that water will take the place of that depressions, and it formed that oasis. So this is the nice chapter about the major landforms created by the rivers, course of the river, then upper course, middle course, lower course, then landforms created by sea waves, landforms created by moving ice, and landforms created by the winds. Okay, I hope you understand this chapter well. Okay, thank you children. Bye.